I'm with Natalya Murakhver, everyone. Welcome to Walk-Ins Welcome.
Thanks so much for having me.
You have a film out. It's premiering tonight in Austin. It will be out by the time it's out, correct?
Yes.
And it's called 15 Days. And give me just a little bit of context about why you made this film. We'll get into it, but I do want to show everyone the trailer so we can talk about this film and what led you to becoming a film. Did you start as a filmmaker?
No, I had grand ambitions as an undergraduate, but I never touched film really until now.
Interesting. Okay.
So, but film has always been my preferred media. It was always aspirational. I just couldn't figure out how to get my foot in the door. I did all sorts of little film jobs. I lived in LA, but I just couldn't really break through, and I wasn't sure where I belonged. And in 2020, when school shut down, I had two public school kids, a 5-year-old and a 9-year-old, and I saw how much they were suffering with the school closures. I started doing my own research, saw that other countries had reopened schools uneventfully, and that the narrative we're being fed was just lies. And I helped organize an open schools movement in New York City, Keep NYC Schools Open, because I thought that it was important to advocate for everyone's kids, not just my own. And the public school kids were being shut out of everything: school, sports, socialization, every developmental milestone.
Yeah.
So this is kind of where it all originated, through the advocacy. And I was, I was just propelled into action.
Wow. Okay, let's watch the trailer, please.
Environmental justice helps create educational justice.
Use this for the society that we want to see.
We need to close schools.
Bam!
COVID is God's gift to the left.
15 days. 15 days to slow the spread.
My name is Natalya Murakhver. I'm a New York City public school parent.
I had a really nice teacher.
Stay at home.
It was just so hard to learn.
Limited amount of bandwidth.
Low-income kids were way less likely to have technology.
Teachers didn't care. They took the rims down.
Kids couldn't get recruited. We weren't allowed to go into a public high school.
Didn't want to lose sight of our hopes and dreams.
Everybody is scared.
Fear!
Out of an abundance of caution.
Abundance of caution.
How could this really happen?
15 days.
We knew that remote education was not a substitute for opening schools.
Student engagement was much lower.
Kids that I competed with
Disappeared.
They were gone.
I want to shut down.
This is the story of the families who fought to uncover the truth.
California Teachers Association,
the teachers union,
was doing opposition research on parents.
Really high level of coordination.
15 days.
I don't have a direct number to Director Walensky, do you?
Yes, I have Director Walensky's direct number.
What a great gift. We have to use it.
Basically, in the name of equity.
Keep everything shut down, especially the schools.
Is it the virus keeping the schools closed, or were there special interests?
This was the biggest smash and grab.
Stop the bleeding.
More money.
We need $1 trillion.
That's a sick society.
And on top of that, another $100 billion.
We create the future that we want.
We change narrative, we change lives.
All of a sudden, you have
George Floyd protests.
If I go out and carry the right sign, I can hang out with 1,000 people.
Following the death of George Floyd.
The piece that I didn't understand, you can protest.
But 28 kids can't go sit in a classroom.
15 days.
We're just watching the news.
Propaganda.
Oh, kids get sicker.
We don't know the mortality rate.
No, they are not getting sicker.
Infection fatality rate much lower in reality.
We're harming them more psychologically.
Life years lost from the lockdown exceeded life years lost from the virus.
We had struck a chord.
15 days.
We were attacked.
How dare you question any of this?
Despicable behavior.
White supremacists.
Death threats.
Cause misery.
Kids will recover.
Enough.
15 days.
15 days.
15 days.
15 days.
No one's coming to save our kids but us.
It makes me so mad watching that. Like the rage that boils up inside of me. I was one of those loudmouth and people who was so enraged, and I wrote a piece around that time about limousine liberals and just like the hypocrisy, because in LA, which was as bad as New York, you had just all the kids were getting private tutors, they had backyards, they shut down the playground. I'm like, who do you think is suffering for all of your like social justice talk? Who is suffering more? It's the lower income kids who are going to public schools, not your kids in like Brentwood, who have tutors and screens and laptops. And I mean, they were saying that there was 1 million kids or something like that never logged in California. And there was one guy, I can't remember his name, but he was like a superintendent, and he was going door to door looking for these kids that weren't logging in because nobody was checking on them or looking for them. And it makes my uncle is this is one of his things that drives him insane because he's always paid attention to like the summer gap, even just with kids who have more more resources versus the kids who don't. And he was like, these are literally lives that are stolen. They're kids who now aren't going to graduate from high school. They're going to join gangs or get into prostitution or be trafficked, or all of these, or the kids who are stuck at home with abusive parents. I mean, it is actually enraging, and you're right to want to go out and say we can't memory hole what happened.
Yeah, I mean, during the pandemic when schools were closed, the head of UTLA, Cecily Mayart Cruz, had said in a LA Magazine article, it doesn't matter if our kids don't know their timetables. They know the difference between a riot and a coup. So, she was dismissing learning loss when, in fact, they were, really punishing the kids that they were claiming, as you said, to be most concerned about. And that was also because of union talking points that, when you watch the film, you'll see Randy Weingarten, Becky Pringle, the heads of the two largest teachers unions in the country. They're also the largest donors to the Democratic Party. Some people say that they are the Democratic Party. Were giving talking points both to the Black and brown communities and also to the teachers, because they basically what they do is engage in this puppetry. And so they were saying to the Black community, your kids are not safe. This virus is more dangerous to kids of color in the schools. We can't guarantee your safety. And then they were turning to the teachers, who actually Scott Atlas in our film points out, where teaching is a very young profession. This was an age stratified risk, right? So the younger people were the least vulnerable to the virus.
Right.
But what the unions were doing was kind of inverting all of this and going to the teachers, you are not safe. We cannot guarantee your safety. We have a Trump administration. Nobody cares about you. You're going to die in those classrooms. And then the teachers and the Black community believed the unions, because why wouldn't they, right? I mean, we didn't have any background on or anticipation of them doing something like this. And it really has taken a really long time to understand why they would do something like this, right? I mean, to weaponize the crisis, fundraising opportunities, galvanize all of their NGOs to come together. And, we're seeing the fruits of their labor now. But these communities, when the teachers and the Black community were coming out and saying, we're not going back to school. And so that gave the teachers unions an opportunity to say, look, anyone who wants to go back to school are white parents. They're white supremacists. They don't care about the teachers, and they don't care about the Black community. They're just moms who want babysitters. They just want babysitters. And then they had the teachers marching around the streets saying, won't die for the DOE. I mean, this is kind of how it played out. And the unions were like, well, it wasn't us. Like, we are, Randy Weingarten was there saying, we want to reopen the schools. And Becky Pringle's like, we want to be with our students. It's our teachers and our students. They don't feel safe.
Right. After they told them not to.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, man. I was not a parent at this time, and I was outraged. So I can't even imagine what it was like from the parental point of view, just seeing the damage that it was causing to your own kids, just not being able to socialize, not having the academics, not having any structure, not to mention all the parents who had to try and manage working from home while they had kids learning from home. It was so insane. And I understand the desire to memory hole it, because I think it was so painful for people. It's like it was traumatic for a lot of people to even have to go through. So it's just the human condition to be like, I don't want to see that. I don't want to remember it. Even when I see any kind of TV or film that was made from that time, A, it's so pathetic. And B, you're just like, oh, why? Why do we, like, I don't want to remember this. I don't, and you have to.
Right. And that's why we started filming almost as soon as like the masks were starting to come off in 2022. This film took about 3.5 years to make, and we conducted almost 60 interviews around the country. And as a New Yorker who lived in the city in Manhattan on the Upper West Side in the same apartment I'm still in now, during 9/11, I was incredibly traumatized by 9/11. I was single, I was living by myself. I could not wrap my head around the fact that somebody would do this to people, and I was in trauma. I couldn't sleep for 6 months.
Yep.
And for 6 months all I wanted to do was talk about 9/11. I was turning it over and over in my head, trying to really just package it and put it away. But after 6 months, I remember going to California to visit friends, or Toronto, and they'd want to talk about it, and I just wanted them to go away. Like, I just wanted it to go away. Now I was memory holding it. I was done talking about it. So every time they talked about it, they re-traumatized me. So I was aware of the fact that there was a window in which I thought we had to get all of these voices, or it had to be in real time, or we wouldn't even be able to access those memories for them. And I think, having heard from some of the people I interviewed who are almost surprised to hear the things they said, it's an important record, and I think one of the only ones that exists.
Are they mad now that they spoke on the record?
Not at all.
Okay.
Everybody's really glad that this was done, because everybody wants to, put this behind them, but we can't, because everything that we're seeing happening in this country today is directly linked to the pandemic, which was just another chapter. The young people who did access technology, I think it's easy to think that perhaps things were easier for them, but teenagers have very special, socialization needs. They need to be around their peers, and the ones who were isolated and forced into these online communities with locked doors, parents at work, really many of them fell into some really bad situations.
Yeah.
And we're seeing, the gender identity crisis in this country, and these poor young people who've fallen into these webs of activists in the trans world. Many of their parents, who I've spoken with, said, yes, during the school closures, X was on, his computer all the time with the door closed. And by the time I figured it out, it was too late. He was lost to it.
Yeah.
So I think every single age strata among the young had different challenges, and nobody came out unscathed, which was the goal of this film. I wanted to show that actually it was a universal catastrophe.
Oh yeah, and even like all the people I know who had kids a little bit earlier than mine is 3.5. And so like the 4.5-year-olds, the ones who were born when everyone had masks, they all had learning delay, speech delays, all of them. And they were in denial about this when it was happening. And I have friends and family members who work in speech therapy and all these things. And they're like, oh no, all these kids have learning delays and speech delays. And it's crazy that you're like, well, obviously. This seems obvious to me. It's funny too, like the mask. My husband and I have masks in our wedding photo, because today is our 5-year anniversary. And I was thinking about how we got married, and this, like, it wasn't even City Hall, because City Hall wasn't even open. And so we went to this, it was like instant marriage LA. It was literally for like, I think, Russian brides and military. And there was a military couple that just got married, but it was a Russian woman who married us.
Wow.
Which is ironic and kind of funny, because my first husband was Belarusian. And so I'm like, I can't get away from the Russians in my life. And then my birth, which was a C-section, mask in that too. I'm like, all of these big moments in my life I have, and she was born in 2022, and they were still making you wear a mask while you were in labor or having a baby.
This was in LA?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. LA was terrible.
LA was bad. LA County was bad, and it was that woman who looks the keeper of the crypt.
Yeah,
Ferrara.
Barbara Ferrer.
Yes, she looks like she's gonna. I'm like, nobody who looks like they're 1 minute away from dying should ever be advising on public health policy. That should just be a general rule. Yes. Also, it's like having a fat doctor tell you need to lose weight. You're like, shut up. I don't take advice from people who can't take their own advice. That is just a general rule in life.
My friend Julie Hamill sued the LA County Department of Public Health, and Barbara Ferrer has a little cameo in the film. I mean, not that we interviewed her, but the archival footage of her. I mean, she was a social justice person. Like, these people they're not doctors. They're just bureaucrats. And I think she was making $600 and something thousand a year.
And you can't get rid of them.
Right. That's the problem. Yeah. Yeah, really, really bad. LA had some of the worst rules and the longest school closures in California.
And it would the rage that I would feel too once the vaccines came out and you weren't giving them to kids. And I would go on walks in my neighborhood and see parents just like scrolling on their phone while their kids were running around the neighborhood with masks. I would be like, and they had none on because they had the vaccine. I was like, like, how are you okay with this? How are you okay with sitting here without a mask while your kids are literally running around outside in the yard playing with masks on? It was
And it was so hypocritical because our kids had to wear masks all day in school. So parents would just drop them off and they would not wear a mask and they'd go get coffee and, just enjoy their day. They had real agency over their days and they'd be like, my kid's fine masking. It's like, really? Have you been in there with a 6-year-old, a 7-year-old, or even, a 12-year-old in a school where I talk to kids all the time about the masking thing. They would talk about the fact that it would get wet and they were uncomfortable. They'd get rashes. Parents would reach out to me and go, look at what this mask looks like. It's like black and moldy and stuff. And I knew that it made the kids feel terrible. It made the kids feel unseen. It created these walls between people. One of the best things is seeing somebody smile at you, especially as a child.
Yeah.
And all that light had been extinguished. And teachers had these contracts because I tried to, we did advocate for removal of masks. We started a campaign called Mask Like a Kid, where we released a video that had a little girl singing "The mask will come off tomorrow" instead of "the sun will come out tomorrow," and showed images of adults, especially electeds like Gavin Newsom, enjoying their lives while the kids were just being warehoused in these government schools and treated like nothing. And I think these kids really got the message that they didn't count. So I think the anger we're seeing in the young and this generation is warranted. The adults failed them horrifically.
Yeah, that's such a good point.
And now they're voting for Mamdani.
they're groypers.
Yeah,
or they're going in the other direction.
Exactly.
But it's extreme on either way. And I do not blame these kids. Honestly, I don't blame them. You have a generation too, I mean, economically, that's like stealing from them to pad their own retirement and their second homes. And so these kids Gen Z is revolting all over the world. It's not just in America. They literally overthrew their government in Nepal, just like these Gen Z kids. And interestingly, yesterday I was looking at, there's a trend on TikTok right now, and Gen Z is like collectively unionizing or something. Like they're basically deciding collectively on TikTok not to pay any of their debt. They're saying we're not, but this is Gen Z revolt first world.
Right.
This is what it looks like.
Right.
And phase 1 before they actually do try and overthrow the government, in my opinion. But this is the way you do it in the first world. They're like, fuck you, we're done.
And they're being misled. And I hate to keep coming back to the teachers' unions, but the teachers' unions are leading these activists. I mean, Randi Weingarten has made no secret of the fact that she's one of the organizers of No King's Day. We don't have a king. We have a democratically elected president who got a huge percentage of this country's vote. And, me as a New York City Democrat, I have to say, I think he's doing a pretty good job overall. I don't agree with him on everything, but I don't expect to. I mean, it's an elected. It's not my best friend who I don't agree with on everything anyway. But we have these activists who are continuing to mislead the youth. We have California, of course, leading the charge. They were the first to pass the ethnic studies law. There's an ethnic studies course that's required in all California schools. It sounds really good and innocuous, but it isn't. All it does is it institutionalizes the oppressor-oppressed narrative.
Right.
And it really is very anti-American in every way because America is inherently bad. There's, white guilt that's being, pumped through the veins of every child in the California school system. And that's migrating across the country. And the teachers' unions are pushing it through.
Yeah.
Are you dealing with an HMO like I am? It is such a pain in the bum. If I want to get any sort of testing done to ensure I'm making my health a priority, I have to wait weeks for an appointment to see my doctor. Then I have to get a referral from her and wait weeks more for an appointment with the specialist I needed to see. Quest simplifies this process. I can purchase my own lab tests online and test for a multitude of health issues I might be concerned about. Then take those test results to my doctor, better armed with the information I need. At questhealth.com, you can get hundreds of tests across several different categories, from allergies to heart health, hormones, sexual health, women's health tests for egg quantity, perimenopause, menopause, men's health tests for testosterone, prostate, and so much more. These are lab quality tests, the same ones you'd be given at your doctor's office. So prioritize your health and visit questhealth.com today. Use the code WALKINS25 to get 25% off and find answers to the multitude of health questions you may have. That's questhealth.com and use the code WALKINS25 for 25% off. Link in the description below.
It's so weird. I feel lucky that I didn't grow up with like any of this weird social justice stuff.
Yeah.
It seems like so crazy, and I can't imagine what it would have done to me as a young kid trying to formulate a worldview around that, especially if you have parents who are like, no. I mean, I remember I had a sister and her kids would come home during the first Trump administration, and they would say things that their teachers were saying, and she would just have to basically be like, your teachers are insane. Like and she's like, it's hard to tell your kids that because these are positions of authority. You don't want to undermine authority, and it's a dance. But like the stuff these teachers were saying was just crazy to even be saying in front of kids, particularly when you don't know what their politics are at home or what the parents like. It was nuts. It was we also forget how insane 2015 and 2016 was, which really did lay the groundwork for 2020, because already kids were being let out of school after Trump won, and they were given safe days from college and all of this kind of nonsense that again in education really leaned into.
Yeah, we've been misled to believe that words are violence, but actual violence is okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing, like these inversions. I mean, I think a lot happened in 2015, 16. So gay marriage was passed, and so the gay rights organizations had to pivot. And we all know crises are great for fundraising. So now it was, transgenderism, which had support of some billionaires like the Pritzkers in Illinois that funded the Lurie Children's Hospital. And there's a great map of how all this kind of came to pass, and how much money is being made, and also some agendas that are being served. But the other thing that I've been thinking about a lot, I can't stop thinking about it, a picture's worth 1,000 words. And 2015-16 is also when the migrant crisis kind of just started, like the open borders thing, just kind of around the world, the United States, the United Kingdom, Europe. And I think, do you remember that picture of that Syrian boy, that Syrian child, Alan Kurdi, that had washed ashore?
Yes.
And that picture, there are research studies on that picture. That picture changed immigration policy all around the world.
Yeah. It's wild how much an image they're powerful.
So powerful.
Yeah. This is what last night at dinner when we were talking to your friend, that he was saying there's just certain stuff he won't let into his brain.
Yeah.
Because it just sticks there.
Yes.
And I'm bad about that. I'll just gorge on all of it because I have a problem, I'm an addict or something. And I'll just my husband's pull your, post October 7th. I just was he's pull yourself away. There have been moments where I feel like I go into these, I don't know, ever since 9/11 actually. It's very reminiscent of 9/11, where I just could not tear myself away from all of the images that were coming out. And I find myself in these media K-holes, where I'm just sucked into it and can't get out. And luckily I have people around me who can pull me out and say, this is not healthy. Don't take all of these images in. And you see it even on TikTok with the younger kids, with all of the images of Palestinian kids often not even Palestinian kids, often Syrian kids, but you know, the dead kids imagery that we are it was just starving kids when I was growing up, and now it's dead kids.
Right.
And it is like, you open X sometimes and you're like, this site is like a fucking snuff film.
Well, exactly. Well, I mean, that's actually, it's interesting. So I interviewed a psychologist, an addiction specialist named Nicholas Carderas. He actually, I think, is based in Austin and in the Hamptons in New York, and has clinics around the country. And he was very prominent in speaking out on tech addiction before COVID. And really, from having read his articles and looked at his books, I knew how dangerous it was to put kids on social media and
just online all day.
But just how addictive that algorithm is, and the rise of ed tech. I mean, ed tech is a huge business and has more than like quadrupled its forecasts from pre-pandemic.
What's ed tech exactly?
It's like Google Classroom.
Okay.
So all of the tech giants have education technology that they're pushing into schools and into homes, whether it's Google or Amazon or, you know, all of them do. And prior to the pandemic, it was tough because research doesn't show that kids do better looking at screens.
Right.
And Google Classroom wasn't all that popular. There was a whole great series in the New York Times about that. But after the pandemic, I think we normalized all of that. That was like the gateway drug, Zoom, and et cetera. And now many kids in public school from a very early age, like from kindergarten, have iPads, which is not healthy for them. And it's better for them to learn to write and to read on paper, and it's better for their eyes and their brains. But hey, it's not very profitable. You know, paper and pen are cheap products. And Nicholas Carderas was talking about tech addiction. He wrote several books, one of them called Glow Kids. He writes for the New York Post occasionally. So I interviewed him for the film. He's in the film. He's a fantastic thinker and speaker. And he was talking about the fact that, you know, I guess maybe 5 or 6 years ago, he was called in as a forensic psychologist in Florida to analyze an 18-year-old boy who had beheaded a mom and her son. I guess he had befriended them somewhere, and he slept over at their house. And he was just an average middle-class kid, you know, like unremarkable in every way. And Nick said, you know, I was very hesitant to go into that prison and meet this young man. I thought he would be a monster. How could anybody do anything like this? But I guess he overcame his trepidation, and he did go in. And he said, and I have to tell you, he said, when I walked in, I was shocked. This was the nicest, most polite, most normal boy. I think he was being asked to give an opinion about sentencing or something like that. And he said, I spent many hours with him. And I asked him, how did you get from, you know, whatever, middle or high school to this? And he said, well, he said, I, you know, came upon an ISIS video online on YouTube. Maybe somebody exposed him to it. And I watched the first one and I was sick. I couldn't handle it. But then I was curious, and YouTube has that algorithm, and it served me another one. And by the time I watched 50 of them, he said, I felt like I could do this myself. And Nick had talked about the fact that you can really get radicalized, these very well-produced videos that tend to lure these young, maybe disaffected men. Yeah. And that's what worries me so much.
I mean, I would think something would be wrong with you to get to the point where you could think that.
Sure.
Like, I don't think a well-adjusted person would, necessarily want to, like, gorge themselves on those, even though I said I watch a lot of this stuff too. But I don't know that you, like, I would be interested to talk to my husband about this because he's a therapist. And I was like, oh my God, honey, I just read this article about AI. And it's like this guy, and he went AWOL and he went crazy, and it turned him psychotic, and he left his wife, and he did all this, like, it was this crazy story that I read. I think it was in Rolling Stone recently. And he's like, okay, well, did he have like a weird, what was his background? I was like, well, he did murder his dad when he was 18 years old. And Jared was like, okay, so not a normal person. You know, he's like, they always tell these stories. He's like, I don't think that's an AI problem. I think this person was already predisposed to mental illness, and AI and stuff like this makes it worse.
Sure.
So my husband's always like, he was like dying laughing because I was like, you're not going to believe this story. He's like, I definitely believe this story.
Sure. No, and I think I'm sure that there's more to it than that. But you read about the shooter in Uvalde as well, like being radicalized with these video games. Maybe these young men are on the border, on the precipice, and they could go in either direction. I mean, when we closed schools, we also took away their access to their sports coaches.
Yeah.
And physical activity helps you, right? I mean, what was the Fight Club about? Like white disaffected men having to punch each other so that they could feel something. Now I know it's fiction and Chuck Palahniuk's brilliant, but I think that's a real thing.
And he was just punching himself.
Yeah, exactly. But I think about it a lot because that film is the book 20 years, 25 years old.
Yeah.
But I think it really is prescient. And I think we're definitely there for these young men who can't, maybe they have no feeling. They're losing their feeling. They're losing their connection and their meaningfulness in life. And I'm not saying everybody's going to go and commit these horrible, violent, horrible murders, but I think watching that and desensitizing yourself to it is not a good thing.
No, I mean, no. And like I said, it does feel like, you get like mugged by it. If you go on certain websites where you just, if somebody doesn't have the filter on or whatever, you're like, you haven't even had coffee yet. Now I just watched like a dead kid. It's like not even 8 a.m. and I've seen 3 dead kids. You have to, I do understand the importance of kind of making, it's such a weird thing. I'm of many minds about this, and I'm not sure where I land because I also do feel like a big moral panic around social media and all of this stuff. And I think it's right to, I think the generation that had unfettered access to it, we're seeing the effects of that, but now our generation, because they're seeing the effects of this, is more on top of the kids and more mindful about these things, I would hope.
I hope so.
I mean, it seems that way to me around my friends of all, and this is not just, I mean, all classes seem to be a little bit more conscientious of it because we know more now. We see these things and how they can radicalize people and how it can affect people. But I also grew up in, TV is going to rot your brain. And again, maybe it did. Maybe this is just downstream of all that. But I don't know that. I feel like a lot of that panic was still a little bit overblown. And like the satanic panic, we have been through these kind of like pearl clutching moral panics that end up being nonsensical as well.
I don't know. I mean, I don't think this one is overblown personally because I live in New York and I see children walking down the street looking at, videos, parents with children in strollers or out to eat. Like they're using those screens as babysitters. And we might think that a Netflix children's channel or whatever is better than some of the other things they might find on YouTube. So we have some control, it seems like. But some of the content, even in those shows, has been pretty problematic. Maybe it's not violent, but maybe there's a lot of gender unicorn stuff, like coded stuff that's in there.
Oh, yeah. No, all that shit's
baby
nuts.
Anti-racist things that, that's...
There was a parody going around of Miss Rachel yesterday on Twitter. It was hilarious. And I have stayed so far away from that. Just her voice from day one. I think someone in my sphere was watching it and I was like, oh God, everything about this is like, we're staying like Coco Lemon, we won't, or whatever. All the hyper, it does get them like all kind of jazz, but I don't know that I don't think you should use it as a substitute for a babysitter and waiting tables. I saw this all the time. This was 10 years ago. But I also think here's my issue with it. It feels like parents it feels like they're not taking responsibility for their role in this. So you'll have a parent that's on their iPhone all fucking day long in front of their kid all the time, everywhere. And then they'll be like, no screens, honey. And or they'll say, hey, we need to get rid of social media in the schools, or hey, and there is this idea, my friend Candace Hortez always talks about, your more is caught than taught. So with kids, they're going to absorb more from what, and this is why I don't like books on, when people are like, hey, we have a book, you want to, I just don't like books on screen anyway. So I always ask for the physical copy, but I don't think it's great for kids either, because even if you are sitting there reading a book, their perception is that you're looking at a screen. So if you are a reader and you're reading on your Kindle or whatever, they're not going to associate that with a book. So if you're trying to show your kid that you are a reader, you would want to use books, I think, because they're not going to be able to discern when they're little between an iPad and a Kindle. Like, oh no, daddy's reading a book. Sure, daddy. Yep. Looks like you're just scrolling to me.
It's hard because it's addictive to all of us.
All of us, yeah. And we don't have, I think the younger kids, I did this really interesting roundtable with a family member and their kids, and I wanted to put it out on it was originally a walk-ins welcome. It was originally an interview, but then because they were teenagers, I was like, I don't know if we want this out. And so we just never released it, but I still have it. And it was fascinating. We all looked at our screen time, and the adults and the youngest, who loved TikTok, he was like, I think it was like 14. They were all in their teens, maybe even pushing early 20. I think they were all in their teens at the time. But we had more screen time than the oldest of the kids. He had barely any screen time. And he's very much one of those kids that's like of the world. He wants to be like sailing and doing stuff and active and can't sit still. And the second one preferred video games over. So his screen time, it's probably not accurate because he's not playing video games on his phone. And then the youngest was the one, but even still came in after my sister and I. And I was like, we have, like, how am I going to judge these kids?
That's really hard.
Yeah.
I guess the one thing I would recommend if parents could do this early on is get their kids flip phones. I think that's a good way of getting ahead of the whole smartphone phenomenon with young people.
How do you deal with it though with kids? Like, we always talk about this because our kid has grandparents everywhere, and so she's FaceTiming with them. And when she was like 1 year old, knew how to like swipe away notifications. I was like, oh God.
Yeah. Well, the iPad, I think the bigger the screen, the better off you are. The more personal the device that they can secrete. I think that, I'm not saying an iPad is great, but for our younger daughter, that's what we have. We have an iPad, and she can do some of that FaceTime stuff because I do think, she's 11 and I see how important it is to continue the conversation with your friends outside of school. For us, it was on the phone. Now it's the iPad. Fine, I guess. But at least, she's got a way of communicating with everyone when she's out and about, and her flip phone works just fine. Like, it's got Google Maps, which isn't great. She can text, but it's the analog, whatever, fine. And she can make phone calls, and she has access. She's connected, but not connected to the extent like my older daughter is, who's always on her iPhone all the time, 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
So, it's not perfect, and it is a collective action. Jonathan Haidt is right about that. It's hard to do these things in isolation. And despite your best, efforts, parents are still going to get their kids iPhones. So you just have to do the best you can with what you have without making your kid a liability. Like, you don't want to disconnect them from everyone and make them weird, right? So it's always like this balancing act. There are no great choices.
Have they done studies on kids that didn't have TVs when we were growing up?
I don't know.
Like how they did it matter?
Yeah, I'm sure but that's different. Like, they weren't communicating through TVs.
Right. It's still passive.
This is different.
Yeah.
I see like these girls at 11 have chats, and they get in trouble. Like sometimes one girl will talk about the others. They still don't understand like the social dynamics of it all and how like you put things in print or, on a screen. But I do think it's important for them to be part of something collectively. So unless all the parents agree, in your circle that they're not going to use it, your child is going to be the one that's going to be excluded.
And I will say that having siblings and relatives who have been through this with older kids, someone said to me that their youngest, who was the most exposed to technology because they had older siblings, and so they, the older siblings are like, we had to wait until we got a phone and they got a phone at this age. But when that kid went to school, he was like, oh, I went through all of this stuff that people who were kept from their phones until now went through when I was young and the stakes weren't as high. So he was like, oh, this stuff that they're all learning, I learned when I was probably too young to learn it. But he was also just noting that it was a little bit like my friend who was homeschooled, who got unleashed into a public college and then just like went crazy. So how do you strike that balance?
Well, I think number one, we need to go back to family dinners and having parents talk to their children and grandparents whenever possible. I think there's a terrible divide between the generations, and personal devices have definitely not helped. I mean, they can help, in the FaceTime with grandparents is a nice thing to do.
Yeah, but the boomers are some of the worst ones on their phones.
I know. But no phones at the dinner table.
I have had 4 grandparents sitting around my kid who is the child in the room, and they are all looking at their phones.
So put them in the middle of the room. That's what we started to do.
They have no resistance to this.
Yeah. No, I understand. They play games. They do I don't know, backgammon or whatever it is.
They get scammed all day out of their retirements or whatever.
They do. They're real targets. But I don't know. We've started with my 11-year-old, the 6th graders are a little bit more compliant than the older kids. So we just had dinner with a bunch of them after Halloween. And my husband's like, all right, everyone, including the adults, put your phones in the middle of the room, like on the middle of the table, and they all did, and it's considered somewhat shameful if you're the first one to take your phone back out. So it's like a stack. So we did that. Interestingly, one of the adults didn't do it and stayed on the phone the entire time. My husband pointed that out. He was like, oh, there's a parent who's not willing to do this. So that
parent is the one having an affair.
I don't think so in this situation, but yes, yeah.
You're going to call me in like 2 weeks and be like...
No, but anyway, I think that, it has to be a collective action. I think it is a really important thing. It's different than TV ever was. I mean, I love TV and I came here when I was 6. I didn't speak a word of English.
I wanted to talk about that.
Yeah, I didn't speak a word of English, and TV, was how it helped. It helped support.
I know so many people who learned English from TV.
Yeah.
Simpsons in particular, weirdly.
For me, it was like Little House on the Prairie, The Love Boat.
God, I had a friend the other day, speaking of the Little House on the Prairie, and he's like, my daughter is really into it, and she's like 10 or 11, and he said, and she has no she's 7. She has no frame of reference of like the olden times, and so she thinks that that's what his life was like because he's old. She like can't differentiate. It's just like any time so before cute. Cell phones is just the like, is that what it was like for you?
Yeah.
I was like, oh God, I do actually feel closer to that generation than I do to like Gen Z though. Yeah. I don't understand them.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I grew up watching the thing is those shows were good in also imparting us like a collective sense of values. They're very moral, like in the Judeo-Christian sense. Like, you knew who the good and the bad guys were.
So you moved here from where?
From Odessa in Ukraine.
Okay.
It was the Soviet Union in 77.
Okay.
Yeah.
And your parents came just to get out?
were Jews, and
Oh,
it was an
okay.
opportunity for Jews to leave the Soviet Union. Carter and Brezhnev had an arrangement, and I think there were a lot of American Jews who lobbied for us to be able to leave. And so there were choices. We could either go to Israel, to the United States, or Australia. And my father's sister and his mother had left a few years before that and had settled in Jerusalem. So that was one option. But his best friend was in New York and said, come, it's good here. You can live with us until you get on your feet. And my father decided, both of my parents decided to come here to New York.
And so you are Brooklyn pretty much?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
I was raised in Brooklyn.
I was born in New York City.
Oh, really? Where?
Upper West Side.
Oh, that's where I live now. And
yeah.
That's home.
And it's very strange feeling for me to go there. I was just writing about this. It's like, it feels like home to me because it's so familiar, because for the first 2.5 years of my most formative years, all the sounds and smell, everything feels like the sensory experience of New York is extremely familiar for me, except I don't know my way around. I mean, vaguely, I've gone many times since, but it's not like I'm a New Yorker. And so I feel like a New Yorker that has dementia, you know, I'm like, where am I? I get turned around, and it's a very strange sensation, but there is something about that city that's always like a homing device. Like, it's always calling me back. I was in Brooklyn recently, I guess like a year ago, and I was like, I could live here.
Yeah.
My husband would hate it, but I could live there.
I mean, I love the fact that I can walk anywhere and that different neighborhoods are like villages.
Yeah.
I live on the Upper West Side. I see the same people every day. I feel very comfortable, or at least until November 4th, I felt very comfortable at home in New York City. I mean, now we have a new mayor coming in. That really.
Do you think it'll really make that much of a difference?
I worry that it will.
Do you?
I do.
As a Jew?
Definitely that as well. But that's not yes, I think definitely as a Jew. Also just feeling that, that hostility, I don't know how to describe Mamdani. I don't really fully understand him. I think we're all still trying to make sense of what happened. But also just in terms of city services, I mean, we've already been not in a great place. The trash is, all over the streets. I've lived in New York City since I was 6. And so I rode the subways when, before we had air conditioning, and there was graffiti everywhere before Giuliani.
Yeah.
During the Koch and Dinkins administrations. I used to commute into the city to go to NYU. So I'm used to grittiness in New York. But what New York back then was predictable. Like, you knew that, there were certain behaviors, riding the subway at night or, like that, those were risky behaviors.
Yeah.
There were neighborhoods that were concerning as well, so you were, careful about, where you went. But nowadays it's so unpredictable, both like, the spate of crimes, whether it's on the subway platform, and also just the number of mentally ill people in the streets.
I mean, it's here too.
Yes, it is. Yes, yes, it is. We walked around Austin yesterday, and it was very reminiscent of New York.
Yeah.
But
it's in every major city. It's in LA, and I'm not sure if this is it feels to me more just like a symptom of societal decline or something. I'm not sure that it's just a problem that's isolated to New York, or it seems like everywhere I go, this problem exists in every major city. So that collectively looks more like something is going on with America than necessarily New York.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely, and it's gotten exacerbated by the pandemic.
Yeah.
During the pandemic, we shut everything down. The libraries, which is where people who have nowhere else to go will go and sit down to stay warm or go use the restroom. All of those were closed. The libraries were closed for a long time. I even spoke out about that because I was like, where are these people going to go? You're complaining about the fact that they're defecating in the streets, but they don't have anywhere to go. And I know even in the shelters, they force force them onto the streets during the day. They can come back for the evenings, but they can't just linger in those spaces. But they're humans. They need to have their needs met. And the whole hierarchy of needs was just, ignored.
Yeah.
And so I think we have a real epidemic at this point. And I think Mamdani's vision for like social justice, therapists to be unleashed into, the subways instead of police officers who have been so demoralized and have been, he's talked about defunding the police. The police are the bad guys,
But I think he's trying to like make inroads with them because he wants to have them on his side so that he can push back against ICE.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I've heard that as well. I don't know. I mean, I just worry. I don't see his judgment as sound. So, we have no leader. We have no adult in the room. Well, he literally isn't an adult. He's not even old enough to be president. I mean,
he can't be president anyway.
Right. He wasn't born here, but I'm saying if he was.
Yeah.
And I just worry. I think that attitudes are passed down from leadership.
Yeah.
And that's the attitude that New York City, the Mamdani vision is now, what kind of encircles our city. And that's not what New York City is. New York City is a welcoming place to immigrants. I'm an immigrant. I never felt like I was not welcome, but we came here to assimilate and to support, the American dream, to be part of the American dream. And I think what he's saying is that the American dream is bad and that we are, Americans are not good people and that they need to be corrected in some way.
Does he say that?
I think he says that. I think that's his attitude. I mean, he's certainly not supporting, our vision for the American dream and for law-abiding, citizens. Like, I mean, ICE is a federal arm of the federal government, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, he's calling for insurrection. He's not looking to cooperate. He's not extending, I don't see Trump as somebody who wants conflict. I think he seems to me, whether you agree with him or not, he does seem to be willing to reach across the aisle. He does seem to want to be somewhat of a pacifist. He is concerned about his legacy. I don't think he's coming into these cities and saying, hey, like I want to cause disruption. He's saying, let's bring law and order to these cities so we can make these cities great again.
Yeah.
I want New York City to be great again. Why doesn't Mamdani? I don't believe he does. And
interesting.
And that's how.
So I think all the people who voted for him do believe that he does. And he did these things that were like very New York kind of hipsterish, like the little like scavenger hunt that he had everybody going out and going from place to place in New York. And it seemed very... that stuff seems very New York to me, and it felt like he was good at finding, like, say what you will about him, he ran a better campaign than everybody else, and he knew how to get people here's what I've learned from trying to produce even a comedy show, getting bodies anywhere is extremely hard.
Yeah.
It's just hard, especially post-COVID, where everybody's used to sitting in their pajamas. Like, I know so many people who actually miss those. They're like, oh, those are the best. Introverts loved that time. They're like, that was amazing. We didn't have to do any family stuff. We didn't have to, put ourselves out there at all. Could just, like, hang out in our jammies all day. But I think getting bodies out into the world to vote, to do any kind of activity, to go to a show, anything, come to a movie, it is very challenging. So his ability to do that, it seemed to energize people and get young people around each other. And I think they just like long for connection.
Right. I think that's right. I think they longed for connection and nobody was connecting them. They had gone through the COVID era where they were completely disconnected. Dating, is difficult in New York City. The singles I talk to have not had much luck in connecting with others. Online is tough as well. But I think, for these young, disaffected people, he presented this colorful campaign and he's a chameleon. He uses different accents and he's an actor. He's very talented. His mother is a talented filmmaker. I loved her films too, like Mississippi Masala, and I can't remember which other. There was a Indian wedding, Monsoon Wedding, I think, something like that. It was a great film. She's very good. So he definitely has that color, that energy. It's very similar to AOC's.
Yeah.
There was a documentary on Netflix called like Knocking Down the House or something. And it's about the rise of the DSA candidates.
Oh, she had those sneakers. Talk about images. I still think of her sneakers that she posted online and how they were just worn out because she knocked on doors.
Yeah.
And they say again, and I was talking about this just from these last elections, I'm like, say what you will about the Democrats, but they've always had a better ground game. They understand that you do need to like knock on doors. This is what Charlie Kirk was actually brilliant at, aside from just being able to speak, I think, in a wholesome way to young people that wasn't so nihilistic and pessimistic and offer them a vision that was optimistic of their future and their country. He was also able to mobilize the get out the vote for the right in a way that nobody could. No, he really understood, like, this is where you have to compete. You've got to compete on the ground, knocking doors. And again, say what you will about AOC. I don't agree with most of her policies, even though she sounds a lot like me in my 20s. I do respect her for getting out there and knocking on doors.
Yeah, she did a great job.
She hustled. She's a hustler.
But beyond her hustle, she was extremely fresh-faced, attractive, dynamic, and her energy was very electric. Like I'm also a Democrat. I supported AOC and every Democrat that came before Biden. I even voted for Biden in 2020, expecting that he would reopen schools like he promised, which was not the case. But anyway, watching this documentary and how the DSA groomed her and supported, she had a lot of support. Like she was kind of like the test candidate. The documentary was about her and Cori Bush and a couple of other, it's on Netflix. It's called like Knocking Down the House or something.
I have to watch this.
It's great.
Because I'm so fascinated at like the DSA does seem to be like it's like a central casting for politicians.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that
they're like, come in and audition.
Mamdani to me is the male AOC. Like I see the exact same. She smiled a lot, megawatt, lots of charisma, and the guy she was running against was basically a corpse, same as Cuomo. I mean, Cuomo is a corpse. You can't.
He's also very entitled.
He's entitled. He did horrible things during COVID.
Yeah.
Nobody's forgiven him for that.
There was that great Babylon Bee. Did you see their headline that was like, elderly Jews have to pick between which person they think is least likely to kill them or like have them killed?
Yeah,
it was very funny.
Terrible. I remember a mom at our school had said, you have to come and help us get Cuomo elected probably like 6 or 7 months ago, and I was like, that's a bridge too far. And she's like, but look at who's on the other side. And I'm like, who is a good, there are no good candidates here. I personally thought that.
So did you vote for Cuomo?
I did vote for Cuomo, but I really would have preferred Adams. I know people say corrupt, all this stuff. Adams was one of the only politicians who ever responded to our call to show up to the open schools rallies. He came to the Let Them Play rallies, calling for public school sports to be reopened. Before that, I knew him because he was fighting for healthy school food, which was
he did a lot with the garbage too.
Oh, did he have Catherine Garcia as his? I know.
I think he was making that better.
Okay.
I feel like I was talking to Inez Stepman, and she was talking about how he made a lot of improvements in that area. She was like, I like Adams. I know people say he's corrupt, but...
I mean, I think any politician is corrupt. All they're doing is making campaign promises and raising money. I just think it's naive to think of politicians as your friends. Like, they're not your friends, right? And in a city like New York, where historically only 10% of the vote, is even, registered, people don't come out to vote. I remember talking to Andrew Yang's wife back in 4 years ago or whatever. And she was like, the biggest challenge we have is getting people to come out to vote.
Yeah.
And so I think that it makes perfect sense that Mamdani won. Like they got Adams out of the way. I think he was a far stronger candidate. I personally liked Adams' style of speaking. I think he's very captivating. He's almost like a preacher. There's no question when he speaks, he is in charge. I like that. I like strong oratory skills, and I think he definitely delivered on that. Cuomo, please, he's not his father. He's not Adams. He doesn't inspire anyone to do anything. I voted for him, but it was as my friend Maud Marin says, the least bad Democrat.
Yeah,
and I'm tired of having to vote for the least bad Democrat. And now we have Mamdani and Bragg and this awful like city council that's largely Democratic, the super majority. And I think we have a year of hell in New York City until hopefully we elect Elise Stefanik and she can clean up the house. You know, I mean, because God forbid we get another 4 years of Hochul, the toddler massacre.
So wait, is that in 2026?
Yeah.
Governor?
Yeah.
I think she'll win.
I hope so. I
don't think so. I think Hochul will win.
Oh God. Well,
it's still very blue, you know, and I don't. I was writing this essay. I just wrote it. I just filed it for Spectator about how these elections have kind of showed me everybody wants to make it about their pet thing. Like, this is the reason that the Democrat, and it's like, it really comes down to like fundamentals, I think. Really, truly just, this is also just a pattern. Usually the people who won the presidency just don't go out and vote in the midterms because they just won, or in these elections. And they don't have a good ground game, and they need to get their shit together. The right. They just don't.
That's for sure.
There's no... And I think optics matter. The K-shaped economy that Carol Roth and a lot of people talk about is very real. And I don't know that people who are on the upward trajectory of that K, the investment class, understand how bad things are for the downwardly mobile at the moment. And the distance between those two is so great that they're like, what's your problem? Things are good for us. And there just seems to be a general lack of empathy for what the downwardly mobile are experiencing at the moment. And that is being exacerbated by things. It was surprising to me to see a lot of the polling around like Trump redoing the, East Wing and building this ballroom while SNAP benefits are being cut. So the government shut down, you're building a ballroom. Like, that's bad optics.
Right.
You have people I think are fine with shutting down the borders. My husband will push back on me even saying this, but I don't know that they're okay with like Abuela being iced, put in zip ties on a video for your weird kind of like deterrent dystopian reality show that you're doing with ICE, and having the grandchild crying while Abuela's thrown in an unmarked van with masked guys.
Right.
Again, Americans, and I was joking about this on Dumpster Fire, I'm like, Americans like this stuff done quietly. They don't want it in their face. And people will push back and they're like, well, was Abuela illegal? Okay, you can have that discussion. But I don't know that people like the overt cruelty, the like feeling of having neighborhoods being terrorized. I don't know how you do get, because they'll be like, well, Obama deported more people. It's like, yeah, but that's because they came in and then he deported them at the border. He didn't deport people that were already in America.
Trump's been set up to fail.
I mean, how do you even do that?
Right.
Yeah, and there's however many millions came into the country. I have no idea. No one has any idea, it seems like.
Right.
So, I don't know that we have the stomach to fix some of the problems, even like economically. You're looking at, people are like, well, we might... I was saying this, I'm like, Americans have such a short goldfish brain, and we cannot really we'll be like, hey, fix money. Money's broken, because it is. And then they'll try and do some things that are going to fix money, but you're not going to fix it overnight. You're going to have to wait through some bad cycles and probably go through a recession and get things down to more normal rates. And then eggs go up and everyone's like, get them out of here. Like, we need another person.
Right.
So we're going to just like ping pong. I've been calling it like populism ping pong. We're just going to like ping pong from populist to populist, because we don't actually have the tenacity to stick through what needs to be done. I don't know that we can bear it.
Yeah.
Some of us want to. I don't know that everybody
we also
does.
don't have any kind of bipartisanism right now happening, right? Everybody's always willing, like they want to, blame the other party.
Right.
we need a uniter. Like it would be helpful to, I just saw that some of the Democrats crossed the aisle and are voting with Republicans to end the shutdown.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this will be the beginning of something. I see Fetterman is one of them.
I mean, if you told me that Fetterman, the brain damaged stroke victim, ended up being like one of the more moderate,
incredible,
sane people on that side, right. I would have laughed.
So they all need lobotomies in order to
be normal again. No, it's not. Yeah, I'm not sure. It's like, I mean, Justin and I were talking about this right before we started recording. Just like the culture feels very weird right now.
Mm-hmm.
I feel it. Everything feels weird.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a great another word for it. And I know we're kind of 5 years downstream of everything that you cover in your movie, and I think we're seeing a lot of effects of like that generation is coming of age, and they are fucking pissed. Mm-hmm. Like you said, we failed them.
I would just
we failed them in a lot of ways, by the way.
We're still failing them.
Yeah.
I don't know what the prescription is for them, for us, for any of us, but I do think.
What were you saying about how there are no
it's all numerators and no denominators. Like, I feel like this generation has lost all context.
Mm-hmm.
They're not really reading books. Everything they're seeing, they're being force-fed all this information. Some would say propaganda on social media. There's, I think, very little triangulation. Like, I think one of the things that was very helpful to me when I was trying to figure out how risky was it for children to go back to school was to read different publications, really kind of do my own research, to figure out what are other countries doing, what are other states doing, is New York, an outlier? And I was able to get that information. I think now these kids are just used to using AI and asking questions. I use AI too. It's very seductive, but it kind of lies half the time.
Or hallucinates.
Hallucinates.
You have to check everything it tells you.
Everything. But
it's still just like anything.
But I don't think these kids are being taught to do that. Like, I don't think we're doing our own homework. And sometimes things feel extremely alarming, but they're only alarming because it's like the first time you've heard about them. Like, if you knew the history, of World War II or, just any sort of history, and we're looking at history books and had teachers who were trying to help kids contextualize things and put things into perspective, it would be different. I don't think that we have dinner table conversations in the same way we used to, where you have these multi-generational households where grandma can say, oh yeah, I went through that. Even like with gender dysphoria, that's a perfect example. That's a pretty common thing that happens to young people. But without that kind of perspective and without, acknowledgement from another, from an older person or somebody who's been through it and still emerged on the other side and had kids and was a tomboy. Remember tomboys? It's really hard for young people to make, their way. As we know, it takes a village. But what is our village now? Is it, TikTok? Where's that information coming from? And who stands to benefit?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think it's great.
Yeah.
I mean, and I feel like I fail all the time because I work from my phone and I'm on my phone a lot. And even like my daughter said to me the other day, she said, Mommy, you're on your phone too much. And that was like heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And she's not wrong. And I have to just hear that. And I'm like, okay, how she's old enough to articulate that. And I'm glad that she can, but I'm like, I'm failing, immediately. It's like, what do I do to... I've got to like put business hours on my phone or put it up in my office hard. Or it's just, I'm like, I understand she's right. Like there's no couching it or anything. It's just like, you're right. And I'll change. And one thing I really try to do with her is just like never break any promise I make to her as much as within humanly possible. So if I try to really be like, and I am this way in life always with everyone is I try to be a woman of my word. That is very important to me, that you can rely on my word and you can rely on me. So especially with my child. So I just was like, I've got to do something about this.
Yeah. Well, it's not just, I appreciate like your willingness to take responsibility. I think we all should take responsibility, but it's kind of like food, right? If you live in a food desert and you're feeling very responsible for, eating, junk food, but that's all you're surrounded by, it's not just an issue of personal responsibility. Yes, you can make better choices amongst the junk food, but that's what you're surrounded by.
I know, but even like food deserts are like, they've kind of largely been overblown and debunked.
I don't know about that.
There's
I've traveled around the United States and I see people who live in food deserts and they are much, much less healthy, mobile, svelte or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
There's no grocery store for miles and miles, and we're being taught that it's not worth our time to learn how to cook. All of these foods can be prepared, by someone else faster, quicker, cheaper, and there's no cost to it. Like it's cheaper. So, but it's an externalized cost. We take it on with our bodies. Anyway, but my point being that, with the phones, like we live in this environment. It's getting,
I know, but still.
I mean, personally, I never have a phone at the dinner table. To me, that's a really good step forward.
We have that. We won't let her use like technology to distract herself.
Right.
I'm like, just be bored.
Right.
Like in the car.
Right.
It's like, look out the window. Here's a book. Here's like a busy book or whatever those things are called. And entertain yourself. Look at the clouds. Do what we had to do. My husband has Siri, which is probably safer. So she's used to being like, hey, I want to hear this. I don't. And so I'm like, no, you just have to listen to the whole song like I had to when I was a kid. Like, back in my day, we just had to listen to the radio. And I do find the option. I mean, and again, my husband's like, you're very hard on yourself. You teach her. She's learning how to make sourdough. She cooks with me all the time because I love cooking. So I'm always.
That's great.
We started a garden. She knows how to garden. He's like, Bridget, did you and I have any of this stuff growing up? No, we didn't. We read to her every night. But it's still like, that is not okay. Hearing that from her is not okay for me.
Mm-hmm.
And that means that I have to, even if it is the environment, I live in an environment where everyone drinks. I got sober and was in comedy and everyone around me was drinking and doing drugs. And if I had said, well, this is just the environment, I probably never would have got sober.
Right.
And so even if it is the environment, that moment for me was like, all right, I've got to get sober. There needs to be some guardrails that I put around this.
Absolutely. And I'm not trying to take away responsibility.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we are, I'm all about personal agency, but the phone has become a way to do almost everything, and it's hard to put that away. I mean, you can't even get into some shows without a QR code. And I resent that deeply because with my kids, flip phone, she's not going to be able to have
and
that QR
everything
code.
for the kids is online now. Like every school,
menus,
you
everything. Menus at a restaurant, I refuse. And they get annoyed. I'm like, do you have a printout? And they'll just be like, scan it. I'm like, we're not going to use phones at the dinner table.
Yeah.
And my younger daughter doesn't have a phone. I'm not doing that. I won't eat at places that do that. But I think guardrails are important. But I think that I guess on the flip side, we get to work from home frequently and we have our phones out. We are present. Maybe we're half present. But my mother was at the office from 7:30 in the morning when she'd get on the subway to go and wouldn't come home till 7.
This is also what my husband says.
So we are
He's like,
around
you're
more.
around.
So, I mean, I don't think it's black and white.
I know,
think we
but
can
it's
do
still-
better. And I understand the guilt. I feel the guilt as well. But I think, just having your child with you, learning from you, what did you say? They learn more.
More is caught than taught.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, you have to, for me personally, I try to be kind to myself in front of my children because I feel like if I knock myself and punch myself a little bit too much, then I'm teaching them to do that too.
That's hard with girls. I mean, as
important.
having a daughter and like my own body image stuff, I am
too.
always like biting my tongue, but holy shit, is it hard. A, it makes me realize how often I'm talking shit to myself.
Yeah.
And B, it makes me hyper aware of like, oh God, I can't like talk about calories or just like I feel fat. Even just like those passing things that you want to. I mean, I've talked.
But maybe there's a different way to talk about it because I do talk about it a little bit because I don't want them to feel like it's okay, like obesity is okay. Like everything is relative. What we're learning these days, these books with like these obese characters are being normalized. It's not normal to be obese.
Right.
Okay. It's terrible. And we should, of course, never treat somebody bad because they're obese and have empathy. But we shouldn't say that, this is okay and it's just as good as being like a healthy weight. Right. So I do talk to my kids about it. I just try to talk to them in a more, and sometimes I will tell them, I'm not feeling great. I feel like I've gained like 10 pounds and my pants are feeling tight, and they'll be like, you still look great. And I'm like, I know I look great. However, this is how I feel. And it's, like, I don't want to not normalize.
Yeah.
Like my parents always talked about their weight, their healthy weight, not about looks, but just feeling good in your body. And, it's not perfect. I'm sure that there's some guilt associated with it, but I don't think that we need to ignore it entirely either.
Yeah, it's tough.
It is very, very tough.
It's fucking
especially
tough.
as a woman.
It is. Just as a parent, it's like, and I don't know, it's really hard. I will say, even if I'm just personally reflecting something that's happening to me as a response to AI and the uncanny valley I'm feeling, even listening to music on Spotify, I was like, is this AI? I was getting mad because I was like, I don't want to be just like listening. Is there a way to say I don't want any AI music and just whatever is playing on this like playlist?
What is AI music?
There's AI music now, and it's everywhere. And it's like they'll do covers of, like Eminem or like 50 Cent. Yeah, they just like it'll be like a jazz cover of 50 Cent. And you're like, oh, I'm grooving to this. This is amazing. And then you're like, oh, it's AI. And I'm like, I don't want this. I don't want you to like slide this stuff in.
Wow.
But it's made me say, I was saying to my husband, I'm like, I want a record player. I want to start a record collection. It is making me want more analog stuff. Yes. It's like a reaction to the slop.
That's interesting because I have heard that kind of stuff, like at a hotel in the lobby, but I didn't realize it was AI. I thought it was just like music,
Some of it might be music and some of it might be AI. And I think most music is probably AI now.
So that means that it's not a real person singing it.
I literally now my whole thing is going to events because you cannot figure out easily if it's AI. It's not like it just says this is AI. It's like, oh, it'll make up some whole fucking backstory about this artist. It's crazy.
I had no idea.
And so then I have to go to events, and if there's like no events, they're not performing. There's no, they'll make up whole bands. It's crazy.
That's really sad.
Yeah, it's very sad. I feel bad for music. I mean, God, talk about like a grind. Filmmakers, that's what's so, and I've been trying to joke about this on stage. Like, I'm not that worried about AI taking everything over because AI can't get drunk and self-destruct. And AI doesn't know struggle. And AI only knows the fastest way to do something. It doesn't know patience. It doesn't know how to ruminate. It doesn't know how to sit with something that you're trying to express. It only knows how to simulate these things. And there's no struggle. And so all art is born out of struggle. And it's not even simulated struggle. You're not buying it. You're just, people are gonna, that's why I'm like, that's why I don't want to be fed this kind of AI music against my own will or knowledge. And I don't know that, we're in this very small window where as there will be a generation that doesn't know the difference and doesn't care. They just assume that everything is AI and they're fine with it. We're in the window of we can make decisions about whether or not and like some AI is cool and funny and we use it in Dumpster Fire to make funny videos of me in like a Handmaid's Tale costume, which was hilarious in this dumpster. So there's I think you can use it for art. But we were watching Lord of the Rings and we were just like, God, thank God this movie was made pre-woke, pre-AI. Because it would not be. It is brilliant and beautiful, and the technology they used was just the perfect amount of technology. It wasn't overdone, and it didn't give you that uncanny valley feeling. It just gave you it allowed you into that world. And it was just so, we were watching the extended versions, and I was like, God, they slid under the wire. They wouldn't, it was 2001. They wouldn't have been made. Even all the stuff they've made since then in that world is not good.
Did you know that Justine Bateman launched a film festival that's like a no AI
Yeah,
film
she's
festival?
I think there's like some balance to be had. And again, this is a weird thing about raising kids in this time, is you're like, how do I do this without isolating my kid when all their friends are online?
Yes.
My brother and I were talking about this. There are no pickup games anymore. Every kid has to go to an activity. You got to pay $1 billion for these activities. And then you're running around and you say, there are no pickup games, but you're getting bullied into this because all the other kids are doing it and all their friends are there. So you don't want, who's your kid going to play a pickup game with? All their friends are in these like clubs and there's just not like, hey, let's go have a game after school in the neighborhood.
Right.
So now it's all these like expensive activities, and every parent I know who's got kids of a certain age spends an insane amount of time just driving their kids from one thing to the next.
This is why I love New York.
Yeah.
Can't drive them anywhere. Like, we don't drive anywhere. I mean, everything is kind of local, and they are overscheduled, and there aren't enough impromptu activities. But I do love the fact that we can walk almost anywhere, and just, being able to walk through the park on the way to school is a real treat. I feel like it grounds you and it reconnects you to nature, seeing a hawk like flying over the trees in Central Park. I mean, that's like an everyday, occurrence. And it's hard to leave. It's a city that has, a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
And just being able to walk, like the grounding feeling of being able to walk, it feels like such a luxury in this day and age.
Yep. Do you see like optimistic signs of things that came out of this time? Like your documentary, obviously, and I think the MAHA movement, parents are taking more control of what's actually in their food and what we're putting into our bodies.
For sure. And I think, in 2020, I didn't really know any other parents who shared similar viewpoints or experiences. I was a New York City Democrat. I had my friends, but those relationships really weren't tested. Are
they still your friends?
Some of them are, yeah. I mean, that's something I also learned, is that speaking out doesn't necessarily cost you everything.
No.
But I think that's been like the fallacy that's been pushed forward, like, to silence us,
You just find new friends.
You find new, but some of the old friends still, as long as you don't engage in ad hominem attacks. I mean, for sure, I've gotten emails from acquaintances after I spoke at the Moms for Liberty Summit in New York City, like almost 2 years ago. I spoke at a town hall that they organized. They had some really great people. Maud Marin, Charles Love, Corey DeAngelis, Tiffany Justice had organized it. And I was a little bit concerned. I was like, it was 2024. They were being classified by Southern Poverty Law Centers, terrible things, untrue things. They're actually very, very good people, many of them. And so I went to this to speak, and I just thought, if you're honest and you engage in good faith, like, good people will support you. And it's true. I mean, I did get 1 or 2 emails saying, you spoke for these fascists and they're anti, trans, anti this, and but they weren't willing to really engage in a good faith conversation. So I mean, yes, I think that the good thing that's happened as a result of, the last 5 years is we've become more skeptical about the narrative. Like, I think we've become better.
The bad news is there's no backstop.
Well,
the bad news is now what do people believe? Anything.
Well, that's true. I mean, I heard Woody Allen speaking on Barry Weiss a few weeks ago talking about religion, and he said that he had been on the Pat Robertson like show or something, or like on stage with him like many years ago, and Pat Robertson had said to him, I'm a lot happier than you. You don't have God, and I do. And Woody Allen conceded that having religion and having some sort of faith makes you happier. But then, of course, in Woody Allen fashion, he said, but I don't have the power to delude myself. So there I am. I don't know. I mean, I'm not a religious person. I'm Jewish. I very much, identify as a Zionist, pro-Israel Jew. I know, my community, and I've really enjoyed getting to know, people in the Chabad world over the last few years, and they've given me some sanctuary because it does feel like a very turbulent sea out there. But for me, it's not God-based necessarily. It's more of finding your people and your community, and also just having a better understanding of history and your place in the continuum of time, that context, the numerator denominator thing. I think I find myself thinking about that a lot.
You should write about it.
Yeah.
You should.
Okay, I will.
You have a Substack. Yeah, you should write about it.
I will.
I would love to read it.
That's a great idea.
Especially just coming from where you come from and having that, child of immigrants and knowing the context from which they came and knowing about communism actually. And I don't know, I think that would be interesting. I think you should write about that.
And the disdain I had for them. I mean, I owe my parents a world of apologies, because as a liberally educated young woman in New York who went to NYU, they supported me. They sent me to NYU. I went to,
What was your degree in?
English, writing, and literature.
Okay.
And then afterwards, I came back for grad school in food studies.
Wow.
Both
like nutrition?
It was the Department of Food Studies, Nutrition, and Public Health. But food studies, it was more about sociology. And, it was a great program. It was founded by Marion Nestle, who has written like 10 books at this point on food politics and food safety. And,
cool.
She's an incredible, thought leader. She's like 88 years old at this point. She's an emerita professor there. But they supported me through everything. And I was the most progressive, I think, ingrate. I just dismissed everything they had gone through. It was the past. It didn't apply to me. I was a purely, Democrat voter. I told them that if they didn't vote for Obama, that they did not care about my future. So I really engaged in all sorts of like emotional blackmail and made them feel really bad. And I said, I wouldn't let them off the hook. You're going out to vote for him. You are going out to vote for him. Yes, they said we would. My mother confessed to me just recently. She said, by the way, we never voted for him. But I still feel so bad. I was such a bully.
Kid bully us into this shit. I know.
Such a bully. And so anyway, I think I realize a lot more now about, how much they sacrificed to give me a better life, and how easy it's on some level it was hard, like assimilating, learning the language, but how easy I had it compared to how they, survived World War II. Both of them fatherless.
Wow.
Both of their fathers died in the war.
Wow.
And single mothers and, times of starvation and all that. So I'm very grateful to them and to others. And so, when I see on my Facebook that a New York friend who's very progressive says, bring on the communist hellscape, which is literally what somebody I know on Facebook said when Mamdani was, as he had gone off to vote for him right before he won. I find it really offensive.
Yeah, because communism wasn't demonized in the same way that Nazism was and fascism was.
Yeah.
For whatever reason. It's just, I think a lot of people have their reasons. And one would be that it's been in our education system for decades. But just didn't get the rep that it deserves, truly, as a truly evil, corrosive force. And I remember when I was married to my Belarusian husband, and we had broken up, and he got married again, and then he's now passed away. But he during like the first rise of Trump, when all the like Antifa people would be out in the streets waving the hammer and sickle, he'd be like, we were out one night and it was on the news and he was like, Bridget, what the hell is the matter with you people? He's like, don't they know what this means? I was like, no,
They don't.
They don't know what this means. Like he moved here when he was 17 or something like that, something crazy, just to avoid being put into the army in Belarus. And he couldn't go home for years, and it was bad. Like, I remember watching The Simpsons with him, and he really was so smart, and he would understand it. But then it gave me such a just different perspective living with him in my early 20s, because it was like the cultural stuff that he didn't understand that I would have to explain. There was an episode where they were TPing someone, and he was like, what is this, Bridget? What is this thing that they're doing with the toilet paper? And I was like, oh, sometimes like over homecoming, we'll take toilet paper and we'll like throw it in the trees and at someone's house because it's a pain. He's like, so you were throwing toilet paper in the trees when I was standing in line for it? I was like, yeah, I mean, I do understand why people hate America, But yes, that is what was happening.
We have a lot of luxury beliefs, and I realized I was raised, my parents allowed me my luxury beliefs, which made,
because they wanted you to have a better life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But thankfully, those stories were still told to me, regardless of whether I wanted to hear them or not.
Right.
I had grandmothers in my life who would talk about, what happened to them. My grandmother lived to be 103 in Israel, living alone.
Wow.
And so I had, I was bored out of my mind sitting there with her, hearing about her stories of suffering. I was just like so disdainful, but I'm glad that I was exposed to those stories and those people firsthand, because once the totalitarianism, what I saw at least in 2020 and beyond, started to rear its head, you asked if my friends changed. Well, my children were at a public elementary school on the Upper West Side. And previously I was super progressive, and, all my friends were American Democrats, similar views. And then in 2020, when I started advocating for opening schools, suddenly I was stepping into a different space. I don't think I even understood what would happen. I didn't imagine that we'd be called white supremacist or racist for wanting schools to open. But anyway, as I progressed on the advocacy route, and we weren't with the mainstream, at least in New York City, I started making new friends, and strangely, suddenly, by the end of that year, we're in another corner of the school playground, and they're all expats from totalitarian. I don't even know how it happened. We all kind of glommed on together. So one of them was from Venezuela. One of them was from Romania. One was from Hungary. There was me. There was a medical freedom person in New York City who was anti-mandates, who was American and was progressive, but also was absolutely against all of this for her own children. And then, a couple of other Soviets, and it's the and those are the friends that we remained close with throughout 22 to 24, 25. And it was so strange. It was like the composition of my group just completely changed, and it helped keep us sane.
Yeah. Yep.
And everybody had the context because they had come through it themselves. I remember my Venezuelan friend saying, oh my God, the whole migrant thing is not going to be great. She's like, because I left 20 years ago, and I know that the migrants who are coming from Venezuela now, it's similar to what happened with Cuba with the Mario. They're emptying the prisons and sending the criminals to. And I'm sure every Venezuelan who came here was
right.
But Tren Aragua, whatever, she called it before it was ever in the papers, before there was a single violent act.
Yeah, because they know.
Very concerned. She said, I'm very concerned about the Venezuelans who are coming here now.
Yep.
But just being around those people really expanded my viewpoint. And suddenly my mother and I are agreeing on the same things. And now we're virtually on the same page. And my mother's 85.
That's amazing.
So it's been interesting. So that's a silver lining. And it's also given me an opportunity to, I guess, apologize to my parents for who I was back then and who I am now. And I think I'm different. Carol Markowitz's writing has been really impactful too.
She's great. I love her.
She was so brave, and she was in Brooklyn, and she was also Soviet. And
I know.
So it really helped.
Carol and I are close.
So it really helped, and I'm very grateful to her for
Yeah.
opening my eyes about a lot of things too.
Yeah, she's amazing. What's your biggest defect of character?
Mine?
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm too honest, and people tell me to shut up all the time. Like I just kind of over-explain and tell people too much. Like I'm not great at the elevator pitch or trying to, and I don't really like taking credit for things. I prefer to share it. Like because with credit comes responsibility, and that's scary too.
Yeah. It is.
So I try, like, people are like, the people I made the film with, like, whenever they're with me and we're at an event and people thank me, and I'll be like, well, it wasn't just me, it was all of us. And they're like, just shut up and just take the compliment. Like when you're in the front, like just be the figurehead, whatever, it's fine. But I don't feel like a film like this is certainly not something one person can undertake on their own. That. And so, I mean, so I'm not great at like the little elevator pitch spiel, like, oh, thank you. You know, it was great. I loved it, you know?
Yeah. What's your biggest asset?
Maybe the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Being too honest.
Yeah. I just won't be dishonest. It's not. So I think, you know, it's hard to be self-aggrandizing and raise a lot of money and be successful by the metrics that some people have. But my metrics are different. Like I need to always be interested in what I'm doing and surrounded by good people. And walk everywhere. I really want to walk everywhere. That's like, honestly, it's like one of my biggest goals in life. Like, I don't want to move somewhere where I'm going to have to sit in a car. I want to walk everywhere. I want to go see people. I want to be able to go to Trader Joe's and have a conversation with the person who's checking me out, not punch numbers into like a little screen at Whole Foods. Yeah. So, yeah.
And where can we find you and your movie? And how can we help you? What is a call to action for someone listening to this?
So the film is currently on X at Restore Childhood, RSTORE. There's no E. The first E is missing. RestoreChildhood.com, Restore Childhood on X. But there's a website called 15daysfilm.com that has all the information. It's going to be streaming on the major platforms. We'll announce them in the next couple of months as well. So it won't just be on X. But really, I mean, at this point, like we have a nonprofit called Restore Childhood, and
do you work with Lenore Skenazy?
I've met her. I've never worked with her, but I know that her mission is very similar to ours to get kids back to basics.
She's been on that beat forever.
She's great. Yeah. I mean, we need to raise money to get the film distributed and marketed, and getting it onto the platforms is a great first step, but it's like a library. It'll be hidden in the back corner.
Right.
If people don't know about it, if there's no awareness campaign, you know, if we don't have a marketing budget, then, you know, it'll exist, but that'll be it.
Right. Just for us to remember.
Yeah.
Well, and where can we find you on X?
At apple2zucchini.com.
Okay.
No, not .com. There's no .com. At apple2zucchini.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time. Have fun tonight.
Thank you so much.
This has been Walk-Ins Welcome with Bridget Phetasy. I'm Bridget Phetasy, and you're welcome. It's the dumbest line.